GoPro just entirely shook up the industry with their Mission 1, their Mission 1 Pro, and their Mission 1 Pro ILS. In this video, we're going to talk about why the ILS will likely disappoint you, and for a lot of people out there, this is going to be the first thing to ever truly break their heart. Okay, that was a little dramatic, but let me explain my point of view with all this. I posted a video yesterday outlining this entire release, and as someone who likely has mild dyslexia, that was just absolutely horrendous with all the retakes of me messing up numbers. But if you want to watch that video, it's up here. But in the comments in that video, it seemed like a lot of the casual users were really regretting purchases as of recently, or potentially waiting for this Q3 release of the ILS interchangeable lens system camera. Now, since I've been focusing quite heavily on action camera content for almost half a year now, I've really noticed in the comments the user base often leans more towards casual users. And I don't think most of those users have ever actually operated a manual lens before. Well, I gotta say, I'm also a little bit to blame with my video yesterday. I didn't notice that the mount on that GoPro ILS actually was a cold mount. Now, for people that don't understand what a cold adapter is or a cold connection, it's like this. There's no electronical components on it. So you can use older vintage glass or fully manual lenses like this 44 M4 vintage lens. That's no problem. Now, going over to this Lumix 50mm 1.7 lens, which is the rebranded Leica into DJI lens, that's just amazing value. You won't actually even be able to use this on this camera because you can see here these electronic connectors. This actually requires the electronics from your camera in order to change aperture, in order to change focus, because this is focus by wire, meaning electronic focusing. Now, with a dumb adapter like we saw here on this vintage lens, you cannot focus any of these lenses. The one thing I think that is one of the biggest deal breakers about this whole system is that you're limited to only electronic stabilization in the GoPro camera. Keep in mind that they do have excellent electronic stabilization, but this really has some major disadvantages, and you're not actually able to even use any of those excellent stabilized lenses you have from the M43 line on this camera. Looking at the disadvantages of using EIS stabilization, you have to keep your shutter speed relatively high. A lot of times when you're shooting at nighttime below 1/100 shutter speed, you're going to have just extreme jitters in your frame. And this could be easily remedied with in-body stabilization, which it doesn't have, or lens stabilization, which you're not able to use it. Now, for video, I would really recommend just locking this down on a tripod if you have to use it at nighttime, or just completely ignoring the 180-degree shutter rule. If you want to see a video on how exactly EIS interacts with scenes from daytime to nighttime, I have a video up here on the Action 6, and that'll give you a pretty good idea of how exactly you should use your camera in these different situations, so you'll better know what you're getting yourself into if you don't already know. Now, with around 95% of all Micro Four Thirds lenses tossed to the side, let's talk about what you can actually use on this ILS camera. First off, I should mention that Lumix does have some clutch focus lenses that may potentially work, but I think they likely will not. But going into your options, first off, if you're not wanting to use any sort of adapter, you have some really nice Voigtlander lenses, and these are actually some pretty incredible ones, and I highly recommend you go that direction if you're wanting the best quality Micro Four Thirds glass that is manual. Now, going on to other options in the market, you have 7 Artisans, TT Artisan, you have Meike. Now, looking over at those lenses, this is that initial push from China that happened a few years ago. And these are dirt cheap lenses. I saw someone comment on my video that the lens will cost more than the body. That's not true at all for a good majority of these cheaper lenses. A lot of them, you can buy them for around $50, $60 US. And these are Also fast lenses at around 1.4 to 0.95. Not to mention they're also really nice and small and portable, just like the one I just threw over there. Now, one of the major saving graces though about the Micro Four Thirds mount is you can actually just adapt so many different types of lenses. Commonly used ones are the EF, also F mount from Nikon, and then also you can adapt Leica lenses through the Leica M mount, and this is just a really fleshed out mount with just so many different options. This one here is the Manler 35mm f2 lens, which is a copy of the Leica Summicron version 4. One of the benefits as well of these dumb adapters, if you're wanting to go from something like M42 to the M43, these adapters, you can find them as low as like $15 US. So they're relatively inexpensive compared to the much more expensive electronic adapting ones. Like this TechArt one is around $250 US, so they can get really expensive. Fortunately for the users of the ILS, they will not need the expensive adapters. Now, one thing to mention as well with these lenses actually seeing at 2.7 times crop, because it is just a 1-inch sensor compared to Micro Four Thirds, which is larger. You will be shooting in the very center of this glass, and this actually can have quite a few benefits when it comes to overall sharpness, because a lot of the optical quality sort of lessens when you get to the outside. So expect really sharp images from this basically throughout all of the range when shooting on that ILS. So that is a benefit. I'm probably talking more people into the system as I go on, but keep in mind, I have lots more to say today that could be potential deal breakers. Now, this next point I'm going to bring up actually addresses a comment on my last video, and the person had commented that they were thrilled to be able to use a GoPro camera with a Micro Four Thirds sensor. Unfortunately, this is still going to have that same 1-inch sensor that we see in the Mission 1, the Mission 1 Pro. It's all going to be the exact same. And I think that's also one of the reasons why they're not able to put electronical contacts on this Micro Four Thirds dumb adapter, because simply it is a 1-inch sensor. So I'm not really sure how they would even go about that, if they possibly could add it in at a later date, or if maybe the next version is that Micro Four Thirds sensor. Let's now move into the overall workflow aspect of using a manual focus system. Cinematographers, they often have quite a few different focus assist features on their cameras, whether it be a punch-in, allowing you to do something like a 10-time zoom in order to make sure your focus is sharp, or focus peaking. Now, if we were to go back to that GoPro and look at how focus peaking might be used within that, I really hope that whatever they come up with is a lot better than what is in this DJI Action 6. This has just had absolutely abysmal focus peaking that shows almost the entire frame being entirely in focus at f2. Now, this is not entirely all that strange, because a 14 to 50 millimeter lens will have almost everything in focus, but not sharp focus. And when you're looking at the focus peaking on here, everything appears to be in sharp focus when that may not be the case. Not to mention they don't even have focus peaking on the front screen. So if you're recording yourself, you should just not vlog. Not to mention there's not even front focus peaking on the front screen, and not even available within D-Log M. I mean, what a mess of a release, honestly. Now, in order to view the focus peaking, this will actually have a 2.59-inch rear screen, and then the front screen will have a 1.4-inch screen on it. This is 14% larger than on the previous GoPro 13, but I think for this specific version, it should have been quite a bit larger, probably even 50% larger, although there would be obviously some size trade-offs. And I really think this is where they're trying to stay as small as possible, which actually can be at their disadvantage and also their advantage. Now, how could they really maximize this somewhat small screen and allow you to do focus peaking at the same time? Now, if we were to look at ways that they could potentially really make this work for cinematographers, I think it would be best if they had a much better iPhone app or Android app that allows you to do punch-in focus, has histograms, waveforms, vector scope, because I think a lot of people aren't going to want to put a massive monitor on top, whether they just don't have a monitor at all because they've never used a professional right before, I think having it pair really nicely with an iPhone and having a great app that connects right away is really going to be the difference maker for this camera. The media mod will include a HDMI micro cable out, but there are definitely some limitations with that. It is quite fragile, and it really adds a lot more bulk when you're adding wires into the mix. I should mention as well that that media mod has a limit of 4K 60 in order to send out to external monitors, so just keep that in mind. We're looking at who this is designed for. This by now should be pretty obvious that this is meant for advanced users, people that know and understand how to manually pull focus. It's not that hard actually when you get used to it. There's actually quite a few tricks when using manual focus lenses. Looking at some lenses here, it will actually have depth gauges so you can actually see the distance of which you will be in focus using things like trap focus. I would really recommend, if you want to learn how to manual focus, that you look into those techniques. Now, if you already have a mirrorless camera and you're not sure whether or not you like manual focus or not, go out and buy a cheap manual focus lens. A lot of these you can pick up for really cheap. I've bought boxes of manual focus lenses before for around $100 for like 8 lenses, with like this one being included, that's worth around 120. So people really undervalue these quite often, and you can buy these adapters for stupid cheap, like around $10, $15. If you're in China, they'll probably be free. Honestly, you could probably find them on the side of the road. But try that and see exactly how you get on with it, because maybe you'll hate it, and that will save you from the headache and the return process or whatever of having to return that if you buy it without properly knowing what you're going to get yourself into. Looking at alternatives in the market, this Canon EOS M that I believe came out in like 2012 shoots 14-bit RAW video, although you're mostly just up-resing 1080p video. I think this is a great option. You can change the aperture within the camera, and they have really small, light, portable lenses, although it is definitely a bit of a headache, so keep that in mind. Looking over at other options in the Micro Four Thirds mount. First off, you have to look towards something like the GH5 for 10-bit video, 4K 60, I believe. It has excellent specs, even after so many years now. And I would really recommend, if you're not already a cinematographer, to likely go to something like that if you have plans on it. I think it will just be a far less stress-inducing camera overall. Now, if you're wanting to really stay small and portable, I would actually push you over towards the Fuji X-M5 with a flip screen. Half decent autofocus is actually not as bad as people say. You have an APS-C sensor, which is quite a bit larger than that 1-inch sensor you see in this GoPro camera. Currently, I see it for around $1,000 Canadian for the kit lens and that X-M5, and this is just incredible value for a camera that came out around a year ago with film sims. It allows you to shoot 6K open gate, and this is something that I've actually tested shooting on the 25 1.7 Air up against that camera, and the results were barely even noticeable on that very cheap Viltrox lens that I paid only $180 for. Now, with you being able to buy that X-M5 for around $780 US with a lens, you could be even cheaper without that lens. I think that is likely going to be a far better option for a lot of people, because they've moved over into this more premium space. I expect premium prices at the same time, unfortunately. I gotta say, I think this is an amazing move for GoPro, but I really want people to understand the limitations that they'll likely face with this. My intention of this video is not to just completely rag on GoPro and just say that you shouldn't buy this camera. I just want people to know exactly what to expect when they buy it, so they're not disappointed when it comes to their door and they realize that their workflow is just not really in line with what they envisioned overall. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on these 3 cameras. Do you think that just the base model, or possibly the base model and the Pro model, will take off, or do you think all 3 will do quite well? Let me know your thoughts. Anyways, that is all for this video. I'm clocking out once again. It is still pretty early. I just woke up not all that long ago once again, but I hope you appreciated this video. I will see you all on the next one. Take care. Bye.